Good morning. Welcome back to the Daily Grind. I'm your host, Chum Change. This is live and recorded, and we're going to go over some crypto news this morning. So, as you guys know, the SBF trial has begun. It's been about 2 days since he's been in court, and yeah, things are getting a little iffy. So, we're going to watch a few clips on that. We also had somebody from CNBC, I guess it was the former chief of the SEC Office of Internet Enforcement. He's going to be, I guess, talking a little bit about Sam Bankman-Fried's parents, and it was kind of an interesting little, I guess, clip or interview that they got into. So let me see who's in the chat, and then we'll get into this. If you guys wouldn't mind, hit that like button. Appreciate you. Alexander, what's up, man? Good to see you. We have Steven Cicero Taines. Good morning. Andrew Masad, Dumpster Fire, Sadie Sometimes, Stroke Ace. Good to see you. We have Crypto Frank. Good morning. Haven't seen you in a little bit. Dom G3 Foxco, my man. Good to see you. Jason Hamilton, good morning. Nick K, Dan R, and I think that's everybody. Michael Wolf, if I missed anybody, I apologize, but let's see how the market's doing today, and then we will get into this. All right, Bitcoin 27,711, nice, 711. Ethereum 1635. We have LTC at 64 bucks. Looks like Dogecoin's at 6 cents still. XRP is at 52 cents. XRP, actually, the judge denied the partial appeal or something. I don't know. We'll get into that in a few. But anyway, Solana 23 bucks. Let's check out Crypto Bubbles over here. This is on the week. Roll Bitcoin looks like it's the biggest gainer of the week. As you can see, 25.7. We have Trust Wallet token. I don't know if anybody has this, but honestly, I've seen this before. I have Trust Wallet. Used it. I don't see a need for their token. I don't get it, but I've never looked into it, so that's on me. Solana is up 20.8%. This is all on the week. Let's check the day. Why is Trust Wallet token pumping so hard today? 13.8%. That's giant. Wow, that's nuts. Let's see. XRP is not a security, but still centralized, says Andrew Masad. Yeah, it's not a security. I wouldn't say it is, but it is. Again, it's to the judges to decide. Aave, let's see, we're up 5.3%. Ton is up. This is Ton coin, by the way. This is up 4.9%. All right, let's check out the fear and greed index, and then we will jump into everything else. 48, still pretty neutral, nothing too crazy. Oh god, hold on, gotta fix this before I blind everybody. All right, let's check out the top 10 coins by coin market cap over on CoinGecko. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, BNB, XRP, USDC, Lido Staked Ether, Solana, Cardano, and Dogecoin. It looks like Litecoin still in 15th, and Shiba keeps getting knocked down a peg to 19th. I need somebody to pump that coin, please. I just want to dump my bag. All right, let's get into this. Crypto World. This is CNBC television. If you guys like, there is a link to all of these videos we watch here today down in the description below. And if you wouldn't mind this little like button right here, just hit that. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. And yeah, let's get into it. Let's hear what they got to say.
Today, Ripple scores another court win as a judge denies the SEC's appeal in the XRP case. And it's day 2 of the Sam Bankman-Fried criminal trial. We bring you the latest and talk to Zach Shapiro of Reigns about what this case means for the crypto industry.
If you guys have any questions during, just at me in the chat.
Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Jordan Smith. Cryptocurrencies were mixed Wednesday morning, with Bitcoin hovering right around the flat line as of noon Eastern. Ether, meanwhile, getting knocked down about 1%. XRP, though, getting a boost, up about 4%. All right, let's catch you up on the top stories, including one reason why XRP is on the rise this morning. District Court Judge Annalisa Torres just denied the SEC's request to appeal part of her July decision that XRP is not necessarily a security in regard to individual sales. Back in August, the agency requested an appeal of that partial decision, saying it would have an effect on other lawsuits the SEC was pursuing. The agency had to get permission from Judge Torres because the full trial in that case is still ongoing. Well, just yesterday, Judge Torres denied the appeal, finding no, quote, substantial ground for difference of opinion in her findings. So the SEC will have to wait for the full trial to begin in April of next year. Next, the SEC, unsurprisingly, opposes Coinbase's request to drop the agency's lawsuit on the crypto exchange. In a court filing on Tuesday, the SEC reiterated its claim that Coinbase operates as an unregistered securities exchange. The agency pointed to the company's staking program, claiming the product is a security under the Howey test. That's the rule from the 1940s that says an asset that gains value from the work of others is subject to securities regulation. The filing also notes that Coinbase has an inadequate standing on XRP and relies too heavily on that partial court victory in favor of Ripple in July. In the agency's filing yesterday, it claims Judge Torres' ruling in July, quote, explicitly declined to rule on whether secondary market resales of tokens constituted investment contract transactions. In response to this filing, Coinbase's chief legal officer, Paul Grewal, put out a series of posts on X and stated, quote, the assets we list on our platform are not securities and are not within the SEC's jurisdiction. Later in the thread, Grewal stated that according to the agency's arguments, everything from Pokemon cards to stamps to Swiftie bracelets are also securities. Finally, it's day 2 of the trial of Sam Bankman-Fried. The court has picked its jury and opening arguments are underway. According to the CNBC reporters in the courtroom, prosecutors told jurors that evidence will show SBF stole billions of dollars from thousands of investors. His defense, meanwhile, told jurors he was just a math nerd who didn't drink or party, and just because people lost money doesn't mean he committed fraud. Along with the opening arguments, witness 1 is expected to take the stand this afternoon. At the same time the trial is kicking off, the DOJ and SBF's lawyers are sparring over how SBF can defend himself. Bankman-Fried's attorneys asked the judge to reconsider an earlier ruling that precluded them from arguing SBF is not guilty because FTX was not regulated in the United States and he followed the rules with respect to FTX US. In a new filing this morning, the DOJ says that U.S. laws are in fact enough to bring the case to trial and that U.S. law prohibits misappropriation of customer assets. Let's keep talking.
I was wondering the same thing. Did he get a haircut or is it just me in those paintings?
About FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried's trial for our main story. Yesterday, as the trial kicked off, Crypto World's Talia Kaplan spoke with Zach Shapiro, managing partner at the digital asset-focused law firm Reigns. The two of them discussed the implications of this case on the industry.
Many people are paying attention to Sam Bankman-Fried's trial, which kicked off this week, yourself included. It has been about 11 months since FTX filed for bankruptcy and SBF stepped down as CEO of the now bankrupt crypto exchange he founded. What was your reaction when that massive failure first happened and when the world learned that SBF, who was once hailed as the white knight of crypto, was in some serious trouble? What message did that send to the crypto industry?
I think it sent a couple powerful messages. One was that it's really difficult to have heroes in this space. I think SBF is someone who came out of nowhere. He didn't really have a background in crypto that went that far. He appeared on the scene, raised a ton of money, built a really powerful brand in the bull market. And then all of a sudden he had powerful institutional investors and folks in media who were hailing him as the golden boy of crypto. I think that was more the case from those players than it was from internal crypto industry professionals. Not to say anyone saw this coming, but I think one lesson here is that just because someone is charismatic and gets trusted by institutional investors and reporters does not mean that they are someone who's running the industry. The second thing that really was remarkable is just the scale of what happened.
Real quick, do you guys honestly think he was charismatic, or do you think people just felt bad for him because they thought he was special? I'm just being, the devil's advocate here, but that didn't seem, I don't know. I don't like that, how they say that. It's weird.
We went, I think, within a week from a media report about Alameda, which is the hedge fund associated with FTX, having a balance sheet that was overweight on FTT, which is a token tied to the success of FTX, and then news that CZ, who is another crypto exchange leader, selling FTT, to rumors of bankruptcy with some of the FTX entities to an $8 billion hole. And it happened so quickly. It was just a lot to take in, and incredible how quickly things move in this industry.
$8 billion hole.
Here we are, about 11
Crazy.
months since FTX filed for bankruptcy and 10 months since SBF was arrested. What do you think has changed in the digital asset industry between then and now? Obviously, the collapse led to a huge erosion of trust in crypto, but what do you think were the lessons learned from that massive failure in terms of regulation? Did it highlight the fact that regulation was really needed?
So at the time that FTX collapsed, Sam Bankman-Fried was actually in DC trying to get crypto regulation passed. I think one of the immediate effects that we had of the collapse of FTX and the fall of Sam Bankman-Fried is that DC doesn't see comprehensive crypto regulation as the priority that they did at that time. And I think, unfortunately, we lost the ability to have regulation that would have given us the clarity in this industry that would have been really useful. At the same time, I think that the blowup of FTX really caused a reckoning with the industry about what here really has value, what things are being built that are creating products and services that are improving the world, that are adding efficiencies to the market, and what was sort of bull market fluff. And I think that the collapse of FTX and the decline in crypto asset values really caused people to have to look at what is real here and what was hype.
You're a crypto-focused attorney now, so I'm curious to hear what position you think Bankman-Fried's lawyers will take during his trial, especially since he spoke out publicly at the New York Times Dealbook Summit shortly before his arrest. That's where he said he bears responsibility for the, quote, huge management failures at the company. I spoke with an attorney who argued that because he made those public statements, there's no defense for him anymore, that he did nothing wrong. And the defense is now whether he did something intentionally and fraudulently wrong, or whether he was negligent and engaged in mismanagement short of fraud. Do you agree?
So real quick, just to elaborate on that, we're going to be watching a clip in a few on this. And I guess there's like a fine line between somebody that intentionally meant to like steal funds or accidentally stole funds with, like, if you miss one little line in, something that, I don't know, the way you acted, like, it's just, there really is just like a simple fine line that he might be able to get off if they really don't think that he intentionally meant to do it, which is insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, I totally agree that the core of this trial is going to be about intent. So in this particular trial, there are probably going to be more charges brought in subsequent trials, but this trial is really about the question of, did Sam Bankman-Fried knowingly commit fraud by taking what were supposed to be customer assets on FTX, the exchange, that were supposed to be held, in segregated wallets for the benefit of the users whose those assets belong to? Did he take those, lend them out knowingly to Alameda, the hedge fund, to essentially gamble them away and use them for improper purposes? And we know that the defense is going to use two theories here. One is to say it's sort of a light advice of counsel defense. He's going to say, look, there were lawyers in the room for all of this. I got advice from lawyers that I reasonably relied on, and therefore I could not have knowingly done this all wrong or committed fraud. And the other defense is that he's going to claim that there was a wall between FTX, the exchange, and Alameda, the fund, that he kept for conflict of interest purposes, and that he didn't really know what was happening at Alameda. So the mismanagement of customer assets on the Alameda side was not something that he, intended or was directly in charge of.
Messed up.
So Sam Bankman-Fried pleaded not guilty to the charges against him, which include money laundering and fraud. But some of his former colleagues and closest friends pleaded guilty to federal charges against them and have been cooperating with prosecutors. They'll testify against SBF during the trial. Key witnesses include Gary Wong, who co-founded FTX with SBF, and Caroline Ellison, the former CEO of Alameda Research, the crypto exchange's sister hedge fund, which you noted. Both Ellison and Wong have insights into the internal workings of FTX. Ellison was once romantically linked to Bankman-Fried and admitted to misleading actions. So how do you think their testimony will impact SBF's case?
Real quick, they're going to be obviously testifying against him. Like, they want a lesser sentence themselves. They're not out of the woods because they're testifying.
Yeah, I think their testimony is going to be incredibly pivotal to the government's case, especially that of Caroline Ellison, who we know there was a recording from right when the exchange was blowing up, when they thought things might be okay because Binance, a rival exchange, could buy them out, that she essentially held a meeting with some of the FTX employees, apologized to them for what was happening, and said that she and Sam had made the difficult decision to essentially reach into FTX's customer assets to, shore up the Alameda balance sheet, and that had caused the shortfall in funds. That is, I think, as close as the government is going to have to a smoking gun as to SBF's intent here. And so I think, it's going to be really, really hard for SBF to overcome the power of that testimony. Gary, who's also pleaded guilty to helping create the code that allowed Alameda to borrow such an incredible amount of funds from FTX. I think the best the defense can do here is to point to, the likely leniency that each of these cooperating witnesses is going to get from the government and say they have every incentive here to make the government happy to get a lighter sentence. But at the end of the day, I think that's going to be hard to sell to the jury.
We're expecting.
Agreed. Well, I guess the moral of the story here is don't trust a girlfriend. because she clearly stole the money into her Alameda side versus his.
To hear
Crazy.
from FTX victims during the trial, how do you think that will impact SBF's case?
I think that's going to be another difficult factor for the defense here. If the government, does its job well, they're going to find people who are sympathetic cases of they invested their money in FTX. You probably hear from people who saw the Super Bowl commercials, all of the celebrity endorsements, and thought that FTX was the most buttoned up exchange that you could trade crypto on, a safe place to hold funds, and point towards that, point towards the terms of service that say that user funds would be segregated and held one-to-one, and then point to the reality of those same funds appear to have been used to gamble at Alameda and then were lost.
Crazy. All right, shout out to CNBC Crypto World. We're going to get into this one. Now, this was the most, the most exciting for me to listen to anyways, because this is the, again, former SEC official John Reed Stark. I guess he really does think the parents are a lot at fault here, and it's kind of interesting to listen to him talk. So I'm just going to play this. You guys have any questions, add me in the chat. And if you don't mind, hit that like button. Appreciate you guys. Let's get into it.
The high-profile fraud trial of former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried, it did begin yesterday with jury selection kicking off several weeks of proceedings to determine if he's guilty of misusing billions of dollars of customer funds or not. Joining us right now is John Stark, former chief of the SEC Office of Internet Enforcement, a senior lecturing fellow at Duke. Okay, I'm going to make you, for the day, the defense attorney, John, for Sam Bankman-Fried. What would you tell? What would you tell the jury?
That's a real problem, Andrew. I would have pled the case a long time ago. This is first of all, he wants to claim some kind of reliance on counsel defense, which is a very tough affirmative defense to do, because if you want to say your lawyers told you all of this was okay, you need to have evidence that showed you it's okay to steal $8 billion from my company or another company. It's perfectly fine. You need that kind of information. And secondly, you're going to have to waive the attorney-client privilege so your lawyers can get up there and say whatever they're asked. This is an unprecedented trial here. Let's just take a look at the evidence that we have. We have 3 witnesses, right? All of them are former senior executives at the company. And they've spent the last 11 months walking the prosecution through every single document, every email, every text. Why have they been doing that? Because they signed plea agreements. These are not people who were granted immunity. They have a stake in this trial. They have to perform, or they're not going to get
right. But John, unto itself, see, if I was the defense attorney, what you just said actually would be probably my best defense, which is I'd say, you can't believe these people. How can you believe the credibility of these individuals if, in fact, they've all taken plea deals and they all have a stake in the outcome of this case, because their stake is my stake?
Right, because they're defending themselves at the same time as trying to throw him under the bus, right? Because they want to get off scot-free, and they would rather pin it on Sam, even though they were all, commingling shit together. It's crazy.
That's the truth. That happens in every single trial. Okay, I was at the SEC Enforcement Division for almost 20 years. Worked on lots and lots of cases. Every single case had a criminal proceeding. Every witness has a bias. You walk them through that, and they explain how they're here to tell the truth, and they explain document by document. Remember, you have a legion of accountants, of forensic accountants, of lawyers, of technologists, all hired by John Ray. John Ray has paid them over $200 million. They're making $1.5 million a day. And do you know what their primary job is? It's to give law enforcement everything they ask for. They are on speed dial from these prosecutors. The prosecutors can call them anytime and say, come on over, talk to us. They're charging somewhere in the average of $1,800 an hour. They're running over to that office, giving them every single document, every single text, every single email, everything they find, and it's free of charge for the prosecutors. This is unprecedented to have so many prosecution witnesses that have walked you through everything and to have access to every piece of data. And what's his defense? He's his own worst enemy. I mean, he's got diarrhea of the mouth always. You look up his text. He talks about the dumb game that we woke Westerners play, where we say all the right shibboleths and so everyone likes us. He admitted in a text that the ethics stuff was mostly a front. He spent his time talking to you with giving you all sorts of inculpatory evidence. He just can't help himself. So he's his own worst enemy.
John, just running through what it looks like some of his defense may be when they started asking questions of the jury, like, oh, do you know anyone with ADHD? I mean, if ADHD is an excuse, that's like a third or a half of the population gets to get off on things like this. And if you're blaming your lawyers, his parents are Stanford law professors. The idea that you got bad legal advice, I mean...
No shit.
Oh, crazy. Don't get me started on the parents. You know, the father gets a $10 million salary, says, hey, my $200,000 salary is not enough. I want $10 million. They get a $16.5 million house. Now, all of a sudden, they're saying, well, we didn't know when we signed the papers to that house. You know, my father used to use this statement when my brother and I would get into trouble. The I don't know syndrome. You tell you, gee, I don't know how the car got all messed up. Yeah, I was using it last night. You can't claim you're a Stanford law professor, you're all celebrated. You know, it's ridiculous to claim all of a sudden you're the biggest idiot in the world and you were paid $10 million for what? And let me tell you something. My closing argument, I'm sorry, Andrew, I didn't answer your question directly. I'd rather be the prosecutor, obviously. My closing argument would be, remember Hamilton, Becky? You know, you want to be in the room where it happens? That's where Sam Bankman's father was, in the room where it happens. Say it, a room where it happens. You know, and this whole, I use an SNL skit, the unfrozen caveman lawyer. Remember that skit where he's going to say, well, gee, I'm just, I'm just a caveman. I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. I'm not familiar with these corporate ways. I didn't realize stealing $8 billion and setting up a secret backdoor to Alameda and using that money to buy as much political influence as I can and getting my mom to help me hide and conceal my true involvement with all these political donations. I didn't know that any of that was wrong.
This guy wants to put his parents to the fire. Like, absolutely. Sam and his parents. He's like, F all of these people because they're just playing dumb.
I just didn't know.
I'm curious. You have now made a number of accusations on the air, not just against Sam Bankman-Fried, who, of course, has been accused of a crime and indicted and is now on trial, but you've made a number of accusations against his parents, including his father and his mother. You seem to be implicating them criminally. Do you want to speak to that?
Look at his face. He's like, did you just really put me on the spot like that, dickhead?
Well, it's my opinion, but absolutely. Absolutely. How do you say that you're getting $10 million and you just say, well, and you're a senior advisor to the company and you say, gee, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't realize it all. They should at least be relief defendants for the SEC actions. When I would do an SEC action and you had people with ill-gotten gains.
So why do you think that they're not? You've quite explicitly just accused them of a crime. Why do you think that they're not being accused of a crime by the government?
Well, a couple reasons. I think you really want to keep, this is, remember, the first trial. There'll be another trial for violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act for Chinese robbery charges, and those are related. They weren't part of the extradition treaty, so we're going to have the extradition agreement. So you're going to have a second trial.
John, I'm going to stop you because the other piece of this is you don't think that if he's convicted, they will stop?
What? Who will stop?
Meaning, no. If Sam Bankman-Fried is convicted in this particular trial,
right? Yeah.
My view, you may disagree with me. You're suggesting that there's going to be separate trials on the financial, political donation stuff, on all these other charges.
Probably.
That's going to come later.
I don't know.
What I'm saying to you, and you may disagree with me, is I believe if he's convicted and is being thrown away for 100 years, that the courts are not going to spend your tax dollars to do this 5 more times unless you would like to.
Well, it's not up to the courts, it's up to the prosecutor. But I don't know the answer to your question. I think it depends how many counts he gets convicted on. Remember, you've got a whole litany of counts here, which allows the jury a little leeway if maybe they believe some of this I don't know syndrome defense, or this, hey, my lawyers told me this was all okay defense. If they believe that, they can always split the baby. But I do think the SEC case will certainly go on. It's been stayed right now, I believe, so it's not moving while the criminal case is proceeding, which is typically what happens. So the SEC could name those as relief defendants later. But to your question, to Becky's question, well, why haven't they named the parents now? They're obviously still investigating, and I think they're keeping this case as simple as they can. They've listed the parents as witnesses. We'll see about more. I mean, remember, prosecutors have so much evidence at their disposal. And they're probably just thinking, let's keep this case simple. We'll see about mom and dad later on. But I'm with you in the sense that who knows what'll happen as if he gets 150 years like Bernie Madoff.
That's crazy. Shout out to CNBC. That was Squawkbox. So that's kind of it's nuts. It's nuts. I honestly think the parents are gonna get their own trial after this whole SBF one is over, to be honest. Let's see. If SBF gets the slammer, how long do you think until he gets Epstein? Goat, you would say that, you bastard. Anyways, all right. I don't know. Who knows? Let's see. Oh, almost forgot. Gotta hit that like button on this. Let's listen to Altcoin Daily. So this man predicted everything. Massive crypto fraud just got worse. Let's see what they have to say over at Altcoin Daily. It's my man Austin. Appreciate his videos, guys. A full video is in the description below. Feel free to at me in the chat if you got questions. Let's do it.
The Sam Bankman-Fried fraud trial has officially started. 12 jurors have been picked, and over the next 6 weeks, we expect to see some of our favorite faces take the stand.
And the truth shall set you free.
Who else loved that movie, Liar Liar? That was like the best movie back in the day.
When you're charged with fraud, like Sam Bankman-Fried is, the number one thing the U.S. government will have to prove about Sam is this.
When you are charged with fraud, the number one most challenging element for the government to prove, something that the government has to prove, is something called the intent to defraud. In other words,
this guy up in the top corner always looks hammered. Is it just me? Does he always look like he's shit-faced or he's getting over a hangover?
If I hand you some long document, maybe I copied it off the internet, some form contract, and there's a falsehood on page 11 that I didn't notice, that's not fraud. That's inadvertence. That's a mistake. It's only fraud if I'm deliberately trying to trick you out of your money. And so that's going to be the fault line.
Did you hear that? Listen to that one more time. Sorry, because I kind of threw you guys off thinking about that dude being a drunk. But this is like, this is a very good point right here.
In other words, if I hand you some long document, maybe I copied it off the internet, some form contract, and there's a falsehood on page 11 that I didn't notice, that's not fraud. That's inadvertent.
Because you didn't notice, it's not fraud.
That's a mistake. It's only fraud if I'm deliberately trying to trick you out of your money. And so that's going to be the fault line here. And so fraud defendants usually portray themselves as overwhelmed, distracted, they're juggling so many things. They didn't notice these falsehoods. The problem for SBF is not only the testimony of some of his former colleagues, but also the image he's built up over himself. And by the way, his own self-image even now. I mean, here's a guy, to go to the point we were talking about earlier about him not closing his mouth, he still thinks of himself as the smartest guy in the room. The best way for him to portray himself is as a guy who was in over his head. He was young. He didn't know what he was doing. He really was not on top of things. And the problem is he wants to portray himself as anything but. And for many years, he tried to convince all of us that he was some visionary who was smarter than the rest of us.
That is so true. This guy used to position himself as the boy genius savior to the crypto industry. The mainstream media did too, by the way. They used to shield this guy hard too. It's so easy for us, for retail, to get fooled by Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX back in the day. I understand. When you have so many people riding for you, this is such a cringe segment in retrospect. You remember moments like this, right?
Sam Bankman-Fried. In just the past 5 years, Sam Bankman-Fried went from buying his first Bitcoin to becoming a multi-billionaire. The FTX founder is now worth an estimated $11 billion. He could have bought that Jordan jersey if he wanted to. His exchange is now worth $32 billion, and it brought in about $1 billion in revenue just last year. CNBC's Kate Rooney has more on the CEO's rise to the top of the crypto industry. They call him the JP Morgan of crypto, right?
Yeah, the Michael Jordan of crypto, if you will. Sam Bankman-Fried has really played a key role in the crypto industries. Just the role in the industry this year in general, Andrew, he spent hundreds of millions of dollars to bail out struggling companies facing bankruptcy, liquidity issues, you name it. The CEO, though, lives a relatively understated life for a billionaire. He drives a Toyota Corolla to FTX's offices in the Bahamas. He lives with 10 roommates and a golden doodle named Gopher.
That is the body of somebody that just sits behind a computer all day.
He lives with 10 roommates and a golden doodle named Gopher. Sometimes sleeps under his desk on a beanbag chair as well. I sat down with Bankman-Fried outside of FTX's headquarters to talk about his role as the industry's lender of last resort.
Dude, like, you live in the Bahamas. Like, get outside. Jeez.
They had a few days to make some of these decisions. What we basically came to believe was the following. The first was that, if possible, it would be extremely valuable to the ecosystem to backstop some of these places. First of all, it's just backstopping customers and making sure they're protected. But second of all, stopping contagion from spreading through the ecosystem, right? Stopping it from being the case that anyone who transitively did business with any chain of people who did business with one of the troubled assets themselves became troubled.
And this is interesting.
Real quick, go in the chat said that's full of Cheetos and Mountain Dew. It's so true. Oh, I hate you so much.
This is interesting. Sam Bankman-Fried actually goes on to predict his own future, predicting the effects of a crypto blowout back in September of 2022. Exactly what happened with FTX.
It's not going to be good for anyone long term if we have real pain, if we have like real blowouts, and it's not fair to customers, and it's not going to be good for regulation. It's not going to be good for anything.
It really still is hard to navigate the crypto world. Still, do yourself a favor, make sure you follow the best people, subscribe to Altcoin Daily. We give you that edge in the cryptocurrency space.
I put the link in the description below
is
to their full video.
Shilling SBF so hard.
Still, yeah, this is fucked up, by the way. Kevin O'Leary still shilling SBF? Like, no joke.
To this day. You remember when he originally invested in FTX, was shilling hard.
The deal flow is insane. I see everything. And I have to disclose, I'm a paid spokesperson to FTX and a shareholder there too, because we mentioned them. And big
in his defense, that was prior to the collapse.
For Sam, because he has two parents that are compliance lawyers. If there's ever a place I could be that I'm not going to get in trouble, it's going to be at FTX. So
you remember
how'd that work out for you, Kevin?
Right after the collapse, he was shilling hard.
If SBF knocked on your door again and said, look, I failed in my last venture. I have a new crypto venture. I need money. Would you back him?
I think we can all admit, you can love him or hate him given what's happened, but he was one of the most brilliant traders in the crypto universe. He also built one of the most robust platforms. We used FTX actively. It was a very robust platform that allowed us to get information on a compliant basis. So I really like what he built.
I assume he just means it was very user-friendly. I've never used it, so I don't know. Let me know what you guys thought about that platform. I have no idea.
Would you back him?
The answer would be yes.
Props to CoinDesk. They're killing it with interviews like this. Still seemingly sticking up for SBF. Still begrudgingly admitting that SBF is on trial for alleged fraud. Still tries to lump CZ and Binance in with him. Still seemingly shilling his own thing in exchange or something. Listen, tell me what you honestly think about Kevin O'Leary's take here. I'll be reading your comments.
You know, you talk about VC. There's been so much discussion over the past year about VC and VCs doing their due diligence when it came to investing in FTX. Any regrets you have looking back?
No, I know. You've got to remember that this deal, at its time, and I think about the equity in FTX US and FTX International, of which I became a shareholder. When I was approached to be a paid spokesperson by Sam and his team, they said, we'd like to, buy your services to talk about this product and this platform. I said, I don't do that. I only speak about things I own and I use. So if you can't sell me a piece of FTX and let me be a shareholder, we can't do business. And somehow they found a way to open that roundup for me after it was closed and after all the diligence was done. But when I looked at the cap table and Bain Capital involved in all of these companies, and believe me, we all look stupid today, but we've seen this movie before. It's not going to change the way we invest. But the point was the promise of crypto still remains. coins. It's still there. Digital payment systems, the promise of Bitcoin to restore value in itself is still there, and to retain value as a digital gold, still there. Institutional interest, still there. Nothing's changed because of FTX, and Binance is on its way out too. But all the crypto cowboys that were the founders of this industry, they're all going to be gone soon. The CZs and the Sam Bankman-Fried, they were great pioneers. But now they just have arrows in their backs. And we'll look at the new generation of leaders. Even Coinbase, think about it, going into its 4th round of litigation with the SEC. They've lost the last 3. Now they can't become the platform for exchange for ETFs because, BlackRock and Fidelity can't launch an ETF because they were planning to use Coinbase. They can't because they're being sued by regulators. I keep looking at this as an investor with the promise. What's next? Where is the next exchange that's compliant, backed by capital, totally transparent on ownership, that the institutional market wants? Where is it going to emerge? Is it going to be Zurich? Is it going to be New York? Is it going to be London? Is it going to be Singapore? Or maybe, and this is what I'm so intrigued about, is it going to Abu Dhabi? They haven't announced it yet. But I know with certainty there's a new exchange coming there called M2, backed by billions of dollars, a global franchise, totally transparent on its ownership, and 100% compliant with its regulator, the ADGM, and the offloading and onboarding of capital from one of the world's largest banks. Now, if that's coming, I'll invest in that. It's the next thing. It's going to probably sweep all of Binance's accounts because no institution is going to put money on that as it goes to zero. What's next is what everybody should be asking about.
Hey, join us at Bitcoin Amsterdam October 12th and 13th. Use code altcoin daily 10%.
All right, that's the end of the video. I don't know. That was kind of interesting what Kevin O'Leary just said. Not gonna lie, that's a little strange, but nonetheless a bit interesting. What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the chat. When a puppet uses a word transparent, it's really trying to convince, or trying hard to convince. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's kind of weird. Kind of weird. The whole conversation of that M2 that he was just talking about, that new exchange. I wonder what that's all about. I didn't notice the Caspo is down a little bit, just under 5 cents. Oh man, my kids are having a hard time this morning. They are both opening my door, freaking out. Anyways, guys, I appreciate all of you guys hanging out with me. I'm sorry, I gotta cut this short because I gotta get back to daddy duty. These kids are they're a little rough this morning, clearly. I think mom's somewhere, but they can't find her. Anyways, hopefully you guys have a good day. Have a happy Thursday. I appreciate all you guys hanging out, watching. Leave a comment down below if you don't mind, if you guys have anything to say. And yeah, I'll catch you guys bright and early tomorrow morning around 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, have a good one. Peace out.